This is the Bookshelf Challenge, where I challenge myself to read all of the books on my bookshelf. All right, just got done reading another book from my bookshelf. This was Stormin' Norman, and it's an autobiography of General Norman Schwarzkopf. For those of you who don't remember or don't know, General Norman Schwarzkopf, also known as Stormin' Norman or the Bear, was one of our top generals in the Persian Gulf War, our first war with Iraq. Now, as I was reading this, I realized, I read this book before, 30 years ago when it first came out, when I was like in middle school. I got it from the library and I read it because I was interested in, the Persian Gulf War. So this was a nice little rehash of something I've already read. I mean, I already knew I was going to get basically the same story, but I thought it might be a different book. But it wasn't. It was the one I read before. Okay, so anyway, the book covers his early life. He was the son of a police chief for the New Jersey State Police. His father was one of the top cops in that, and he investigated the Lindenberg kidnapping. And then Norman ends up going to military school and then joining the army as an officer and going to Vietnam. And then the bulk of the book gets into his time as the general in the Persian Gulf War. So this was an interesting little timepiece. It's talking about the Persian Gulf War, how they didn't want to stay there forever. They had their objectives, and it was to kick the Iraqis out of Kuwait. And they decided, once they'd done that, they didn't need to do anything more. I mean, they stayed, troops stayed in Kuwait, and they've been there ever since, rotating in and out. But they didn't feel at the time they needed to go all the way to Baghdad and take out Saddam Hussein. Restraint. That's, like I said, interesting timepiece. And like how they didn't want the public to think that we were fighting this war for oil. No blood for oil. They even say that in this book. And I got a little nostalgic because, I was in the Army, obviously after this, from 99 to 2006, and I ended up in the second Iraq War. But a lot of the same equipment, a lot of the same places that I went to and experienced in that war were in this one. So they're talking about, the different MREs. It's like, I've eaten that MRE. I've worn those mop suits they're talking about, the ones that's supposed to protect you from chemical attacks, and you just have all this charcoal inside of them. Yeah, I've had those on. What was the other one? Yeah, like I said, just towns like Tikrit and Baghdad that they mentioned. They're like, I've been there. So, yeah, that was, like I said, that was a interesting little nostalgia. I don't know what more I could say about this. If you're interested in reading, like I said, a little slice of history, this would be a good book. And let's get another book for the bookshelf. What do we have here?